And we are live. I am Ryan Neiman, Sports District Radio here. Follow us on Twitter at SDistrict Radio. Like us on Facebook at Sports District Radio. And we are on the web at sportsu.com. Thanks again for joining today. It was a wild weekend in sports as we now have the Stanley Cup Finals all set to go as the LA Kings will take on the Rangers. Also, David Ortiz is now recruiting Kevin Love to Boston. These are some of the stories we're going to be talking about later on. Donald Sterling attends a black church service. Kind of interesting. And Phil Mickelson caps an interesting week at the memorial while he's being investigated by the FBI. But before we get into any of that, it is never, ever too early to talk about fantasy football. We are getting closer to those camps beginning in August and talking about the rookies and players in new places you have to be watching for in fantasy football. A senior NFL analyst from the Huddle, John Tuvey, is joining us right now. How are you doing today, John?
I'm doing well, thank you.
Thanks again for being on the show, and you're fighting a little cold yourself. How are you feeling now?
It's that dreaded spring summer cold as we're all transitioning to air conditioning, but I'm hanging in there.
And are you getting that tan ready for the summer months going ahead for us right now?
Yeah, now that the sun's actually come out, I fought off the wind burn of softball season, so I'm into the farmer's tan of softball season.
That's what I always have going is my farmer's tan. I tried tanning once, and I turned beet red like a lobster, so I'll never try that again.
Yeah, I'm the same way. Fair-skinned guy, the sun comes out, and I look for a hat and a nice beer tent.
And as I mentioned, we are having you on talking about fantasy football. It's never too early, John, to talk fantasy football. And we're going to be going over rookies who could have an impact this season, and also the players in new places and if they have any impact in their new destinations. But before we get to that, ESPN released their rankings, top 200 rankings over the weekend. And I just want to give you their top 10 and get your insight on what you think about their top 10. Starting with number 1, they have, of course, Adrian Peterson, LaShawn McCoy at 2, Jamal Charles at 3, Matt 4. Then they have Marshawn Lynch at 5, Eddie Lacy at 6, Calvin at 7, Peyton Manning at 8, Doug Martin surprisingly at 9, and to close off their top 10, Jimmy Graham. You have any complaints with their top 10?
No, based on their scoring system, that seems pretty close. Doug Martin is probably the one name that would surprise people as far as popping up into that spot. But if he gets the touches that he was supposed to get last year in that offense, it's kind of a Chicago Bears-looking offense, and not just the potential of Josh McCown, a quarterback, but the receivers that they drafted, that they already had, and then you put Martin in the forte role. They had some guys step up and do well last year when he was out, but that is Martin, the big thing, and if he gets the touches that he was expecting to get last year, and that doesn't change much with the new regime, he's probably a bargain in the top 10.
As a fantasy player yourself, do you trust Martin, though, with that shoulder problems he had last season?
It's that's the range where you can see Kevin Johnson being just a couple spots ahead of him. And that's where jump out and train. You need a strong system, maybe reach for our main rookies or so. Just an injury, but in knowing for sure how